Hello. Online, I go by Gelada. Charismatic cartoonist extraordinaire, or charismatic Mexican cartoonist extraordinaire Gelada. I bid you welcome to my first Satanist on video. You can listen to this video, perhaps, out of a sense of curiosity, like anthropological curiosity, like what could this even be about, maybe? Or you can listen to this video and understand it as a challenge of sorts, a challenge to your sanity, a challenge, to your sense of order, a challenge to your sense of self. I am aware that my voice perhaps is not the most intimidating sound ever, and I struggle to talk extemporaneously. Is that the word I'm looking for? Let's look it up. Extemporaneously. Extemporaneously refers to speaking, performing, or composing something on the spot. Yes, that's the word that popped into my mind, and that's the word, that's what I mean to say that I struggle to do that. I struggle to talk extemporaneously in English because it's not my native tongue. And I want to, practice. So I'm gonna be talking about a wide variety of subjects, and I'm not gonna write scripts for this because, you see, I am a sculptor. I draw comic books. I draw many other things. I draw really weird pornographic art at times. I am interested in many things, and I don't want to really lose too much time doing this, but I think it will be a good exercise, and I just have so much to say, so much to challenge people with, because you see, many people, they claim to be quote unquote Satanists, but their values really, their way of thinking really doesn't do justice to such a momentous name. Satanist is, to be a Satanist should be to be really against everything everyone believes, more or less, to be, if not the opposite, at least the greatest, adversary to the philosophy, to the values, to the thought systems, to the definitions that people generally live their lives, serving. And I think I fit that bill. Anyway, enough of an introduction. Today's subject will be harmony is a type of conflict. Harmony is a type of conflict. Maybe you are just you just agree with such a statement. Maybe it's just obvious to you. If so, I congratulate you. I think you are in the minority. I think people most likely would think that harmony and conflict are opposites. They are, exactly opposite things, opposite states of being, or opposite conflicts. Conflicts, opposite concepts. That's what I meant. And they're not. And there's a pretty quick way to demonstrate this, and by demonstrating this, by convincing you of this, I will have brought you at least one step, if not more, closer to Satanism, to what I call Satanism, I will have, conquered a part of your soul if I manage to convince you that harmony is a type of conflict. Because, of course, if I manage to do that, it would imply that, the real event is conflict. Harmony is something that is subservient, if you want to put it that way, to conflict, in the sense that it's not a concept that really faces up to conflict. It's not an enemy, but a type of. Harmony is not an enemy of conflict, but it is instead a type of conflict. You see, the concept of harmony implies at least two things, at least two elements. One soul element, one soul thing, standing alone, cannot be in harmony. You need two things relating to each other so that you can say that they are in harmony. Basically, you need interaction, you need a certain degree of diversity, you need a multitude of forces, of elements, of pieces, of numbers, so that you can say that there's harmony. And the reality is that things, they are always necessarily in conflict to each other. Of course, I am going by the definition, by the strict definition of conflict. If you take, for example, a piece of wood and you just hold it, you think that it is, not changing. It's it's a stable piece of wood. But if you set it on fire, then you go, oh, now it's changing. It wasn't changing before, but now it's changing. But that is just a matter of time, because wood, if left alone, will eventually rot away completely into dust, as does most things do. And so, even if you think that a piece of wood that is not burning is stable, and a piece of wood that is burning is in dramatic chemical change, they are both in fact in dramatic chemical change. They are both in fact in a state of conflict. And that's what I mean, that all things are perpetually, in a strict sense, in a state of conflict. This is, of course, observably true in the world if you look at it from a scientific perspective. But even if you go into the world of concepts, of pure mathematical concepts, the different concepts are necessarily in conflict to each other, insofar as they constrain, they define, they delineate, they oppose, they add up to each other, and thus they affect each other, they define each other. Like you have to say, for example, that the number 2, is not the number 1. 2 forbids, in a way, 1 from being 2. Because 2 is 2 and it's not 1, and 1 is 1 and it's not 2. I'm speaking about numbers here. They are, antagonistic in that fundamental sense. So, when you're talking about harmony, you are talking about, a type of conflict, because you're talking about a system that, you need at least two things to be there for there to be the possibility of harmony. And those things are actually, by virtue of being two things, fundamentally in a state of conflict. Even if they are in a perfect equilibrium, they are nevertheless in a sort of cold war in relation to each other. If you're not very good with abstract concepts, maybe you're having a lot of trouble, or maybe you have already clicked off this video. But even if this is intellectually easy enough to understand what I'm laying out here, the implications of it are really profound and deep and really basically incompatible with the way we understand the world. The main idea is that I just want to leave you with that for now. I was thinking about further developing those momentous implications, but I'm just gonna call it, and try to keep these videos short and concise. So the idea is that if you understand this thing about the relationship between harmony and conflict, you understand how there's fundamentally a hierarchical relationship between concepts. You don't need to have an opinion about harmony and conflict and their relationship. Or well, maybe you can in a sense, but what I mean is that within the very concepts, there's already a relationship, a hierarchical relationship, a relationship wherein harmony is subservient to conflict, where harmony does not manage to stop conflict, really. Of course, on a superficial level, you can talk about, harmony and conflict in the sense that, these two people get along great, there's harmony. These two people are fighting all the time, then there's conflict. Of course, on that superficial, familiar, practical level, the two concepts, can function as opposites. But in a more strict, in a more mathematical, in a more philosophical, in a more precise, in a more fundamental level, they have this different relationship. This relationship where, harmony is a type of conflict. And you can then maybe try to think about what you really mean when you talk about harmony. What does it mean to have harmony in a world where fundamentally, because of the flow of time, because of the nature of existence as being predicated upon relativity, this is a world where nothing can have any kind of attribute unless that attribute is, obtained in relationship to other things. So, for example, nothing can be tall by itself. It has to be taller than something else, or hotter, or colder, or any attribute that something can have is something that only makes sense, that is only not only perceivable but conceivable within a certain context, within a set of relationships. And those relationships, by definition, are always, in a strict sense, conflictive, because they are in friction, and through friction they erode each other. They say you can only get so far. There's boundaries, and those boundaries, they are very much like the boundaries between countries. Like they are asserted through, destruction. One goes on, and then there's two. And when there's two, the symbol for the number 2 is different than the symbol for the number 1, you have a different thing. It is no longer merely 1. It is no longer 1 at all, in fact, the number 2. That's an antagonistic relationship. So, anyway, I'm sure that none of this makes sense to any of you, but it is actually a really important subject, even if it seems really basic and primitive. It is only by thinking about basic and primitive things that you can really progress, because many subjects that seem they are very sophisticated and very advanced, they take root upon simpler subjects, and typically it is in those simpler subjects that there are the blind spots, the things that we don't question, and those are the things that we need to question if we want to move forward most of the time. To move forward in a meaningful way, I mean. To really, really move forward. Anyway, if you understand now that harmony is a type of conflict, then you are one step closer to Satanism, so congratulations.